they're selling locally, and the ideal way, and one of the best used bookstores I ever knew was in Spokane, and that's because he was born wealthy and he didn't care if he made any money. So he just loved books, and he had one of the most amazing bookstores. And every year he'd go to Europe and search the bookstalls in Europe for rare editions. And he had an amazing rare book library, as well as just a great. I don't know if he's still alive because that was back in the '70s, but that was because he didn't care if he made money.
And there's specialty bookstores that focus on specialty things like Chesler. Have you ever heard of Chesler?
The name is very.
It's all about mountaineering, so it's all about books, history.
The University District, I used to wander it a lot. It used to have, and it may still have it, it's been a long time since I've been there, it had about a dozen used bookstores, which were really good.
It's pretty much just
Now that it's used CDs. Now it's used CDs.
yeah.
Do they have?
There are some places that I went open. I thought they would close years ago, but they're still open as of now.
Like Easy Street.
Like Easy Street, like there's the one below the Neptune, and then there's that other one near. Like,
Don't they also sell? They sell vinyls too, right? And vinyls in again. I actually regret having got rid of my
If you're an
vinyls.
independent record company, it's almost impossible getting vinyl pressed in the United States because the major labels are all like reissuing their back catalog on vinyl. United in Nashville just opened up a second plant, like just recently. That's how much business they're doing. But yeah, like a lot of independent ones go to the UK and the Czech Republic.
I know people claim the vinyls have better sound. I think when a quality vinyl has better sound than a CD for the first 2 or 3 times you play it.
Well, I think what it is it really comes down to mastering, and the mastering for CDs. We got the loudness wars where it's like, oh, it sounds better if it's louder, so we'll just compress it, you need some compressor limiter, and just
Yeah.
the hell out of it, and then it sounds like crap. But there's a professor, I forget what university he's at, but he always does like these each year these tests where they play a song from different form. You know, here's from the vinyl, here's like the CD, here's like a really low quality MP3, and like each year more and more people prefer the really low quality MP3.
Oh wow, because MP3s sound flat to me.
Yeah.
There are some digital formats that are pretty rich.
Yeah.
But they're big.
Yeah. I mean, like some of the higher, if you do like high quality MP3, usually those aren't really as bad. Compared to too low, like
Yeah.
People sound all weird and wobbly.
Well, analog is probably richer. Just I'm not sure our ears are capable of that much distinguishing.
Yeah.
And then the needle, although the new turntables are much nicer, the needle used to etch every time it went through, so you lost sound quality every time you played it. And then I just remember as a kid, I mean, vinyls were always scratched, and I had things that would be worth a fortune if I hadn't played them. Original Beatles albums and.
Yeah. I still have some of that stuff, and I mean some of the stuff. I should say most everything. I don't think I've had anything that I've had an issue with. There were some things that needed to be cleaned because they were dusty and stuff.
I've had.
I did have an issue. I had a box of Plexis that inadvertently went with me to Arizona, and I had no idea that they were with me.
So they warped a bit.
So yeah, those are dead.
Yeah, they warp pretty easy. I think a lot of it depends on how I was a kid. When I had all the vinyls, I didn't store them very carefully, so they would warp and they'd scratch and they'd. Anyway, you can tell how eager I am. So anybody know what a trigger is before I explain what a trigger is?
It's like a trigger on a gun or like trigger warning.
Well, so a trigger is basically a stored procedure that's triggered by an event. So instead of you executing it, it's triggered. It just pops when an event, and the usual events for these are like insert, update, and delete. Those are the usual events that trigger. You can trigger on other events. You can trigger on create. You can trigger on alter. You can trigger on some server type events like backup and restore and things like that. But generally, most of them are triggered on insert, update, and delete. Because they are triggered by an event, you can't pass in any parameters. Right, so that's another difference. There's nothing, the user can't pass in any values. Let's do, and then there's three kinds. There's for, after, and instead of. So for and after are essentially the same thing, and we'll talk about. So when you do, you trigger it and you say for or after. Both of these occur after the event happens. So if you use for or after, the insert occurs, the update occurs, the delete occurs, and then you do whatever is in the trigger, right? It occurs after the event. Instead of intercepts the event and does whatever you want to do instead, right? So if you wanted to make sure that no deletions happen, but you didn't want to totally disable, take that away, you could do it instead of delete. Like you could write all the, we'll do this actually, we'll write all of the records that would have been deleted into a temp table so that you can review them and make sure that they really should have been deleted. Does that make sense? So one way of creating an undo. So instead of intercepts it and does something instead of, these two happen after the event has already taken place. Does that make sense? So let's create a trigger. Let's create a trigger which, what would we want a trigger for? We could do a thing on delete. Let's do one for, we didn't need synonyms, I was looking for program. Oh, triggers also are related to a table. Notice there's triggers down here. There's no trigger on donation. Let's do a quickie trigger that will, when you do an insert into donation, will basically flag donations that are above a certain amount as needing special attention, right? If somebody donates $50, you probably figure it's probably legit. If they donate $5,000, you have to wonder, are they spoofing you?
No, you want to call them and invite them to lunch.
Yeah.
Get 10,000 out of them.
It depends, I suppose. I mean, if they're, my database isn't handling the credit card thing, so probably it would not be an issue because you could handle the credit card. But let's just do a trigger that does that. So I'm just going to do create trigger, and I'm just going to give it a name. Let's call it big donation as. Okay, and again, you can't have any parameters because again, the way it's fired. You have to be careful with triggers, by the way. I know in MySQL when they were deciding whether to add triggers, which they eventually did, a lot of people were objecting that if you're not careful with triggers, if they're like popcorn going off. I mean, they basically all go off. A trigger, this trigger that I'm going to, oh, I think I have to do something else for this. So let's say for, I have to do for insert on, yeah, we have to give it on donation. Is that right? For insert is correct. I think actually on donation goes up here, or it goes before. And then the for insert has to go before the as. There we go. Now, oh, I'm in master. That's why it's objecting. I'm going to cheat. There we go. So create a trigger, and you give the trigger a name. You have to say what table it's on. Right, so this is on the table donation. You have to say what it's going to do. This is for inserts. This will be triggered for every insert. This is another thing to think about when you're making trigger. Every single time there's an insert in donation, this trigger will fire. Generally, they don't interfere too much with performance. But if you have a lot of triggers, they could. Or if your trigger is doing something really complicated, they could. So it is something to be aware of. Now I'm going to say if we're going to create a table to put these in to look at, we'll also, it's after, so four are after the same. The insert will occur. We're not interfering with the insert. But we're going to take those inserted things and we're going to say, we're going to put them in a temp table. If exists, or let's do if not exists. And there's a couple of ways to do this, but this is one way. Select name from sys.tables where name equals, what do we want to name this? Yeah, big donations. This is a table that doesn't exist yet. So we're saying if this table does not exist, we're going to make it. And these are the begin and end for the if. So I'm just going to look for, we want a table with a donation. So I'm going to say create, I can't type, create table, big donations. And basically I'm just going to drag the columns in from donations. And I'm going to get rid of the employee, just do the person key here. And then we have to give each of these like a donation key is an int, donation date, date time, donation amount is it money in there? Yes, so we'll do money. And person key is int. I don't need to give it a primary key probably. We can if we want. No comma off that last int. Okay, so we're going to create it. That's if the table doesn't exist. Then we are going to say declare at donation amount, and we'll make it money. And we're going to get that donation amount. I'm going to select at donation amount. Can you see it? Is it up? You need it up higher? I could move it up a little, I guess. I'll go walk through this in a moment. Equals donation amount from inserted. Does anybody know what inserted is? Because I haven't told you. I guess no one? Okay. So inserted is a temp table. It's a built-in temp table that's in the temp database. When you insert a new value, it temporarily puts it into the inserted table. After the insertion is completed, it will go away. But there's an inserted table. There's also a deleted table, right? The deleted table is used for updates and deletions. So there's a deleted table and an inserted table. And you can access them from triggers because they're in process. They're within the same transaction. Does that make sense? So you can access those, that inserted table and the. So we want to get the amount from the inserted table. And this will happen whenever there's an insertion. There will be, the inserted table will exist for a millisecond or two. Yeah.
Kind of like a cache.
It is. It's kind of like a cache in the, again, in the temp DB. We don't actually have to, it knows, inserted is the name of that table. It knows where it exists. We don't have to path it, which is kind of nice. And it's a cache, but it's a cache that only exists for at least, millisecond or a second, or however long the transaction takes. But as I said, we can access it here. Delete it is actually probably more useful because we can see what has been changed or removed, right? But again, it only exists once the transaction is completed, once it's been committed. And we don't have to manually, any transaction that you don't manually begin tran, in tran, just happens, all right, and it's committed automatically. Once it's been committed, it's gone. But we can get that, and then we can say if, so we'll say if at donation, let's actually declare another thing too. Let's declare, what do we want to call it? It's going to be the threshold. Where do we look and start putting them in this table to look at? Let's call it threshold. Is that how you spell threshold?
Yeah.
Looks wrong to me.
Two H's?
Yeah. Does it have two H's? Threshold.
It's one H.
I think it should just be one H, yeah. Which will be money. And we'll say that it's going to equal, let's just say 500, arbitrary amount, okay? If donation greater than or equal to at threshold, okay, so we have our if there, and thresh still looks wrong. Looks wrong either way. And then I'm going to do a begin end for this if. And what we'll do is we'll insert into big donations. And so we'll do all of those. So we'll do donation key. I'll raise it up here. What I need to see, donation date. And donation amount and person key. And we'll just select all those same fields from inserted. So not select big donation, select donation key. Right, so we'll insert and we'll select all those things into the inserted table. Does that make sense? Now, if at donation, actually that should be at donation amount. So what we have going from the top to the bottom is we're going to, on every insert into the donation, we're going to check to see if this table exists. If it doesn't, we're going to create it. Although, I don't know if we need to create it. There's a logic. We could argue that only if these are, it might be more efficient to say that we only create it if these are, if this is true. Does that make sense? I'm going to leave it this way, but I think there's a more logical way to, a more efficient way to set this up. Because we could basically say only if want me to mess with it, or are you happy with it the way it is?
What does it do?
Well, so right now it's just going to check. The first thing it's going to do is it's going to check to see whether this table exists, and then it's going to create it. But there's no reason to create it unless you have a donation over $500. So it would make more sense to put this as an internal if to that. First check to see if it's over $500, then check to see if the table exists, right? And then create it if need be. I just don't know if you want to mess with it right now, if that would confuse you. Basically what I would do is I'd move all of this up top. And then I would do the other if, and then I would do the insert.
Since you set it up with the $500, it probably makes more sense to do it that way, but I mean, you could also do where it automatically takes the top 10% or something like that.
Yeah, you could. I'll leave it the way it is for right now, and then I'll make an alternative version that just to show you what it would be like. I think it will confuse to fix it right now. So again, I created it, and if I refresh under triggers, so we go to the table donation, I'm going to refresh, and now we have a trigger called big donation. So when I do an insert, I'm going to just insert into donation. And I'm going to just pull the columns, get rid of donation key. And I'm going to get rid of the employee key and donation confirm date too. I got rid of those in the new version of this. I put them in a different table because I figure confirming is different than donating. So we need a donation date. So the values, get date, donation amount, let's do it as $550.75, just so it gets in the table. And person key, who's been donating? What was the last person key that we have? I'm just going to do a real quick select star from person. We just need somebody to donate, and it has to be somebody in the database. You might have different ones. I have Muntz Nelson Muntz. Can Nelson donate that much? Maybe. So 136. Do whatever you got. You may not have these people. Just do a person in the list. All right, so when I do this, oh, I have select star from person again. After messages, it said 134 rows affected. I think that was from the select star. One row and one row. So it inserted, if we look into select star from donation, look at the last donation, and it has 136, 550, 75. And also, if we do right now, select star from big donations, it will exist, and there should be one donation in it, which is the last one. And if we did a donation that isn't at the threshold, it shouldn't put it in that table. Does that make sense? So it worked. You could do the same thing with delete. Let's just do a real simple one instead of delete. And then I think I could almost let you say we're done. You can do all sorts of triggers. Triggers are useful for enforcing business rules that regular referential integrity cannot support.
So is there a certain process that's running the triggers, and these are rules that go into that process?
Well, so basically you create the triggers, and a trigger is always fired by an event. This
But
is
there's
an,
something monitoring for that event.
yeah,
Constantly,
so when you do an insert, if there's a trigger, I guess SQL Server, when you do an insert on a table, must always check to see if there are triggers for that table and that event.
And so it goes through those, right? Yeah.
Right. I'll show just a real simple one with a, like instead of. I'm just going to do it real simple. Select, so let's do create trigger. I'm going to do a TR, no delete. It says Tigger, yes. I haven't read Pooh in a long time, but yeah, no delete. And it'll be for, do we want to do it for donation or on donation? This is one I would not leave running, actually. Instead of delete as, and the reason why it's underlined is needs its own batch. Oops. All right. So this is a stupid trigger, which you would never want to do. But you can do things like what we did up above, where you create a table where you store all of the things that are deleted so that you can review them before finally deleting them. I mean, you could do that. This is just, I want to show you instead of. Did it do it? I did select. I don't need that. I just want create trigger. Cannot create trigger on table. It already exists, so it made it. Okay. And if I go to donation and I do refresh on the triggers, let's go down to triggers, refresh. It is there, no delete. So if I tried to delete, and this is a child table with no children, so you should be able to delete everything. So I'm going to delete from donation where donation key equals 47, which was my last key. But all I'll get is you cannot delete. And it says one row affected, but I'm sure it didn't delete it. See, it's still there. I didn't delete it. Now you could, as I said, there is a deleted table. Do you want me to do that? I don't know how long you want me to spend on these because I think you have enough to do. I'm going to alter it though. Instead of doing this, you could say, and let's do it for delete and update. We'll do that. I'm just going to copy this create table big donations, except I'm going to rename it. Actually, let's take if not exists. Where is it? Down to here. And then we'll call it deleted donations. I don't know. And then we'll just insert into I'm just copying that down, but I have to change a couple of things. So we're going to insert it into deleted donations. And instead of from inserted, we're going to get it from deleted. Deleted is a built-in table, just like inserted is. Now, do we want to actually do the deletion and just store it in there, or leave it and then delete it?
I'll leave it.
What?
Leave it.
Leave it. Now, to actually remove it, the thing, you'd have to suspend this trigger. Doesn't allow you to actually, there's no way you can actually remove anything from this table. It is possible to suspend the trigger. I might show that if I can remember how to do it. All right, we'll make it this way. So I'm doing alter trigger. What is it not like about if? Oh, I have print and nothing. I wonder if it's updated. It's not, if I need to, that should work.
Can you have a trigger that does stuff like that, delete or?
Yeah, so I could, if I wanted to, actually after I've copied it to delete it, I could actually in the trigger now delete the record, right?
Okay. So you could have triggers that clean up bad data, right?
Sure, you can have triggers to clean up back data, although I might do that as a stored procedure so that it doesn't run every time, it runs when you want it to. This is going to run every time there's a deletion or an update. And it's not going to allow it to happen. But if you did want it to allow it to happen after you've written it to another table, right? So you were creating a temp table to store it. So if we did want to allow it to happen, we could actually do the deletion in the trigger or the update in the trigger. So I'm going to, I already did that, right? So it's already been altered. So if I do a delete here, it has 2 rows affected, right? So it didn't do it from here. 47 is still there. But as we look from select, not delect, select star from deleted donations, and we would see that it has the one that we wanted to delete. Now trigger, I think, is it suspend? So TR, I'm trying to remember what I named it, TR no delete. I'm not sure if that works. Incorrect syntax. Let me look at how you suspend a trigger. Oh, disable. Disable trigger. That's easy enough. And then I think you just do enable trigger. So if we wanted to, it's disable, Maybe it's not trigger, it's just disable TR no delete on donation. Look one more time. I think that's it. Just disable TR no delete on donation. Why is it not happy? It says disable trigger.
Does it want go?
What?
Does it want go?
Maybe, maybe. That's it. So I should be able to, if I do that, so it's disabled. Now I should be able to delete that one and it should actually go away. And so if I select star from donation, it's gone. 47 is gone. And then I think if I wanted to re-enable it, it's just the same thing, just enable trigger TR no delete on donation and probably go. Yeah. I'm not sure I'm going to re-enable it, but you can. I mean, that's what you would do to re-enable it. So you could do a trigger like that where it writes all your things that you want to delete, and then you could say if you truly do want to delete it, you could disable the trigger and go in and delete them. But it would give you a protection that you don't have otherwise because there's no undos. I think that's enough on triggers. I think you have enough to actually do the assignment. I don't expect it to necessarily go easy. Although you never know. You might have no trouble whatsoever. I'll let you start on it. I will post this. There is a video, I hope. And there's a lot there because there's those initial temp tables, functions, store procedure, and trigger. That's a lot. I should have made it worth twice what it was. I will comment these and post it. I am going to stop the video so there's not quite such a long tail at the end of garbage. And it looks like it's still recording, which is good. Stop screen sharing. Stop broadcast. Stop. Stop the broadcast. I guess I have to cancel that.